Good evening, YouTube. Good evening, good evening, good evening. The weather is so temperamental. It's so crazy. Listen, I don't know about anybody else. I don't know about anybody else, but I am one of these people who my mood can change based on little things when I'm looking for something. Anyway, I'll just use this. It is hot. Some days it's hot. Some days it's fucking cold. Some days it's raining. What is going on? This weather is so weird. Anyways, I'm just looking for reasons to complain right now. This happens often where I have one thing planned that I'm going to talk about and then I end up talking about other things. And so sometimes I have a whole bunch of stuff planned in the morning and then I get to my day and I get to doing what I'm doing and then, then all of a sudden I have other things to do. And then I want to talk about something completely different, which is what has happened here. First, I just want to say, so I find, and I kind of like also listen to other people as well. Like obviously, I think just like anybody that would listen to me, there's a lot of ego around people being teachers or people being like, especially spiritual teachers. And I wouldn't have thought so. Like just teaching in like I can see an ego around being like a CEO or like a pastor, but like a teacher, a spiritual maybe because I don't see the value in it. Not because I don't see the value in learning from other people, but maybe because I lean on my spiritual team so heavily and I lean also on myself so heavily, meaning that irregardless of what anyone tells me, I'm going to be the executive decision at the end of the day anyway. And I also encourage other people to live like that. So throughout my life, I've only ever gotten screwed up when I listen to others. When I listen to myself and I go my own way, I'm fine. Everything's fine. So I just always think that people have their own internal guidance system that's supposed to help navigate them through, because I don't think there's a one size fit all for everybody and everything. I think even the ways in which people are gang stalked is like varies. Like I listen to some situations where some gang stalkers are more dependent on things like V2K and others spell work and others, they just do things differently from what I hear from experiences that I read about and people that are talking about certain things and whatnot. So there were things that I guess the style in my city is different. So there were things that I didn't necessarily like experience. But excuse me, I don't know. I don't really consider myself, and I'm putting that out there and I've put it out there a couple times, I don't consider myself a spiritual teacher. I don't have the ego that I guess it's supposed to come with. I see myself as someone who has survived something and who had to be pushed to come online and be on camera to talk about things, because I do not typically ever in my life have I ever been comfortable with just letting random people into my personal experience in this way. Had I not gone through this, had I not felt like it would be important for other people to actually have the information, I wouldn't be doing this at all. And if God gave me a choice, I wouldn't do it. Like, I would maybe write things down and like put out a manual, but it wouldn't be, it would be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not generic, not cold, but it wouldn't be very personal, you know? So I don't know. It's like I rubbed someone the wrong way by correcting them one time, and I think the girl hates me forever because of that. People are really in their egos and like really serious about being called a teacher. The best that I can do, the closest I can come, is I can be a motivator. Like, I can help motivate people to, like, you know, keep their hope up and stuff like that. But like, this title that people are fighting for, like, what is the payout? To manipulate others to be worshipped, I guess. I don't know. It's very weird. I come on here and I don't feel like this is how I would have done it. So if I had to choose to do this, I would like to have healed myself first completely. I would have liked to process all the emotions that need to be processed first. I would have liked to be the best version of myself first, and be in a more consistent high vibration, and not have, you know, some of the energies on my back that I do, and not have some of the things that I have to contend with still going on, coming on and talking to people. I feel like clearly it is an emergency situation, and clearly there aren't, you know, maybe what I can offer is unique because I don't hear a lot of people come from my perspective, I guess. I guess. I don't know. It's not like I don't know what to say. I feel like I have this lackadaisical attitude about a lot of things in life. I have this attitude maybe towards like how people feel in regards to their money and their status and stuff. Like, I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, I get wanting to achieve things in life, but I don't get why the comparing to other people. Like, understandable why a person wants it for themselves, but like, why measure themselves against others if they've already achieved the thing that they wanted to achieve? So I think it just really boils down always to me not understanding people. And I don't mean that in the way that, like, I hear people say things like I hate people and stuff like that. I don't mean it in that way. I don't mean it like it's like I detest people or anything. I mean, I just don't understand, good or bad. I don't 100% get people. So I don't really expect people to get me as well. I kind of don't care if they do or not. I don't know, like, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if anybody is new to this channel and anybody's watching anything that I have to say, I don't know. So many things are coming to mind to say right now. If you're new to this channel, listen, I am a person doing my best, is what I'm going to tell you. I am a person doing my best. And my best looks different every day. And it depends on a number of factors what my best looks like. And I think that that's probably the same for anybody being gang stalked. You're doing your best, okay? Like, nobody asked for this. Like, nobody, if anybody had a choice, obviously they wouldn't be in this situation. So the path that I had to take to get this information to give to people, like, what qualifies me to talk about it, because I've been through it. And I feel like in this situation, I'm thinking of two particular people that I wouldn't say I know of these energies. I know of them, and they've taken quite... People get very overly invested in me sometimes, all the time. Overly invested. at the detriment of themselves. They forget themselves, and I am the only thing that it's like, I don't know what happens. And my God, it's sad to watch. It really is. Because, you know, sometimes as I'm drifting off, I'm just looking back and I'm like, this is horrible. Someone should like get a hold of this, you know? But anyway, just so invested in this title of teacher, of leader, of whatever. And it's like, I don't know, it's like, here I am. And it's not that it's not important to educate people, but it's just like, I don't see why fighting for this. If these people want to do what I do, they got to do what I did. See, now it's a different story. If people want to have that title, they got to do what I did. 3 years in the trenches with no one or nothing. No help. And if you could do that, besides God, of course, and if you can do that, then you get the title, and I pass on the baton and I go live my life happily ever after. Like, this is insane. Who the hell wants to be on this camera healing in front of strangers, trying to be the best version of themselves in front of strangers? Who wants to do that? Is that fun? On top of the things that you already have to do, you have to think about if your page is being shadow banned and if the followers are real and why these weird pages are like, what? This is crazy. Why are people fighting for this? This is nuts. Look, I say all of this to say this. Whatever I say here, you have to run this by your gut. And you have to ask yourself, does it make sense for you? And if you want to cherry pick through the things that I say, please, by all means, do that. Because I sure as heck do that when I listen to other people as well. At the end of the day, I am my own, not me, but, you know, myself and my spirit team have executive say in my life. I am not expecting anyone to, please do not hold me to any standard whatsoever, good, bad, would, like, I don't, please don't. Listen to what I have to say, and if it works, amazing, and if it doesn't work, then, you know, you gotta go with yourself. You gotta go with yourself. I feel like life is a teacher. I feel like God is a teacher. That is everything that I have learned, and everything that I aspire to continue learning. I learn from God. I learn from my spirit team. And you know, I think the greatest teachers are people who don't even know that they're teachers, people who are doing. I think doers are amazing teachers. I think that they are people who you can just look at and learn a ton, and they don't know that they're teaching people just by existing. And sometimes a teacher could be, you know, you can learn from observing everything, nature, you know, children. I learn a lot from children. All kinds of people. You know, there are people who don't know that just by their strength to move forward, by the fact that they're happy in circumstances that other people could not imagine. People who are just doing their best. These are our teachers. When someone gets on this camera, you have to ask yourself, what is their journey and what qualifies them to say the things that they're saying? Like, you know, let me say, for example, so there was one night I was having one of these emotional days. And there was this girl, and I think this lady, she's in her 50s, but she's a burn victim, and she was doing all of this on camera, taking off her makeup and doing all of this stuff, and a bigger platform featured her. And I watched her, and she was just, I can't remember what she was saying. I don't remember her exact words, But I was just so inspired by her and a little bit ashamed of myself, because I was like, you know, she's still smiling, and this is so brave, especially in the world that we live in today, that you post something on social media and people are so quick to like mock you and make fun of you, and like you see comment sections and it's like so disgraceful, the things that people say. And I'm just like, for her to put herself out there like that, and for her to still have a smile on her face, and for her not to be in bed crying and being upset at life and like, why did it happen and whatever, just having the strength to push forward. I was like, and I commented and I was saying, like, people like her to me are motivation. People like her to me are, I see people like that as leaders, only because it takes an incredible amount of strength to pick yourself up after something like that happens to you. And it's one thing to be in a battle, but when it's something that you did not ask for and you did not deserve, and so truly you are innocent in that situation, and then to have the strength to not just pick yourself up and continue going, but to make the best of life and to still smile and enjoy your life and not let it take from you, I think that is truly inspirational. I think people like that deserve to have a platform and talk to people about how they got through something. I think a lot of times people feel entitled to something for the wrong reasons, and it shows. So, that being the case, I want to get that out there. So, you guys are going to see me in all kinds of conditions, in all kinds of moods. As I am on here, I am not your leader. I'm just here sharing with you the things that I have been forced to be good at. That's it. So, moving forward. I can never tell how many people are watching me are true TIs and how many people are trolls. And like, I've come to the point that it doesn't matter, simply because I know how important it is for people to find information that they need at the time that they need. And if I feel pushed to say something, I'm gonna say it, because I trust that people's spirit teams, whether or not they even believe in them or not, that people's spirit teams are gonna make them find the information that they need to find at the time that they need to find it. And I just trust that that is gonna be the case. I wanna first of all validate your feelings if you are being gang stalked. If you are truly being targeted, first of all, I'm just gonna be the first to say, if probably no one has said it, I am so sorry that you're going through this thing. This is a lot. This is a lot. This is, I don't want to say the most, because it's not the most. That is not true. It feels like it's the most that someone could go through, but it is quite a lot. It is a lot to go through. And there are a lot of parts of it that are very crazy. And probably you're waking up and you're thinking a lot of days that you cannot believe this is real, that you cannot believe this is really happening to you, that you cannot imagine how this is possible. How comes no one is coming to help, etc., 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 etc. And I get it. I 1000% get it. I've gone through this, the horrible part of it, the heavy lifting. I am still targeted. The gang stalking part of it, the part where I'm crowded out on the streets, that part is quite difficult for the gang stalkers to do. I am still spiritually, I got my days. Believe me, it's not over, and it's not over for me because it's not over for them. But it has been difficult. It has been crazy. at this time, I feel like people being gang stalked need people who are soft and compassionate to them and whatever they're going through. But I also feel like you need a little bit of a firm hand to let you know that this is, you gotta be strong. Compassion sometimes, strength and motivation most times. Because if you stay too soft under this kind of aggression, this aggressive action, if you stay too soft under it, you're gonna break. You're gonna break mentally. You're going to break definitely physically. You're gonna break down. Emotionally and spiritually, you're gonna break. You need to decide, and it needs to be a decision. A lot of the things that need to happen right now with you need to be a decision. You need to decide that you're going to make it out of it. You need to, from whatever place you're in right now, decide what you want the outcome to be right now. And you need to be resolute about that decision. It needs to be unwavering. This is the difficult part. The difficult part is while your environment is saying otherwise, while you are stuck in a situation that looks like there is no way out, while you're hearing all these stories of all these people saying, I've been gang stalked for 10 years, I've been gang stalked for 20 years, I've been gang stalked for my entire life, which, by the way, I don't know if that is true or not. Somebody told me they were gang stalked their entire life, 35 years. I have no idea how someone started gang stalking a baby, but at the same time, I don't want to tell anyone no, because I remember in my situation when I was telling people, no one believed me. So I always hold that space of just believing people, just believing whatever they say, because I don't know for certain. However, I will say this. If you're in, whatever phase you're in, even if you've been in for a while, they kind of want to get you to the point where you kind of just accept that this is happening, this is what it is, this is how I'm living my life. And that is the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be saying to yourself, I'm not living like this. And the more you say it to yourself and the more you mean it, the more sick of it you get, is the more you're going to be more determined to close doors, access to you. Not just closing doors of access to you, but also deciding how you want to move around in the world. This is extremely important. So you start looking at it. So it's the same way you would plan in a business. Like, when you're planning for how much money you want to make or anything like that, you say, I want to make $10, at the end of the year. And so now you have to work backwards. Well, what amount of activity would I need to put in order to generate $10 for the year? And so you go about, you put a plan in place. And now that you're going through with the plan needs to be flexible, because you don't know what factors are true, what real life factors are truly going to affect the way this plan's going to work. The plan on paper is not the plan in reality. So then you need to rework it. That is how you're supposed to look at the situation. You're supposed to say to yourself, I'm being gang stalked. I would like not to be gang stalked anymore. Do not add time to it, because you don't know how this is going to work. And typically when you start feeling as though, or when they start feeling as though you're pulling away from them, they panic because they're losing control, and they try to tighten their grip even more. So you're going to have the first period of being shocked. Obviously, you're shocked. You don't even know what's going on. Then you kind of acclimatize to the situation, what's actually happening to you. And then from there, you get to a point where you have to say to yourself, you have to determine to yourself that you do not want to be here anymore. And once you start doing that, they start noticing that you're behaving differently, that they're losing access to you, and you're going to have a whole period of people trying their best to hold on to you harder. And that, every step, every phase that I described is grueling. Every phase that I just described is grueling, and it takes time. So there are phases, oh my God, okay. There are phases to this entire thing. It's not black and white. They definitely do not want to see you go. So you got to be prepared for that. When you're in the phase of closing the door, determining that you don't want to be here, determining that you like don't want to deal with this stuff anymore, take it from me, it is ridiculous. Like, it is ridiculous how desperate it gets on their part. Like, it gets bad. Like, I think it that is the phase where you realize that, I mean, in my situation, the people gang stalking me are gang stalking me for the cartel. And so these are dangerous people. So these people are desperate. They're desperate. However, I don't know how other gang stalkers who don't have those kind of who don't have that type of clientele behave. I don't know how those gang stalkers are. But I imagine they're all the same, because this is not easy for anyone. So I imagine that they're all the same. They use technology against you, obviously, so they're able to just get a hold of everything in your life, thoroughly research you, put in a lot of slander, manipulation, blah, 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 which we're all going through, right? They can monitor you through the same means, through technology. And then if you happen to be lucky like myself, then you're dealing with spell work, then they access your energy all the time, and it's like they harass you and whatever. And finally, I've closed that chapter with the energy, but it's like, oh my God, they still they fight through to try to do it. It's like you can feel it's faint, but it's like they're struggling to get there, and it's like, oh my God. It's absolutely, it's ridiculous, actually. It's just ridiculous. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna take. Actually, I do know what it's gonna take. It takes people not being alive for this to end. That is what they're telling the universe with their actions, is that is the only way for this to end. So it's like, everybody's journey is different, but in this journey where I am dealing with cartel, the Mexican, Brazilian, Colombian, whatever, drug cartel level gang stalkers, it is ridiculous. It's crazy, and that's the best way that I can put it. I don't know how else to put it. I've seen things in this time where it's like they built up all of these illusions, all of these lies, all of these facades, and I can see how a lot of people could fall into it when I wasn't paying attention myself, and I wasn't, and they didn't start taking interest in me. Every time they started taking interest in me, and I slipped away, I would notice it. I would start seeing it kind of form, but I've really seen the entirety of it, having like walked through the entire thing. And I feel like Jonah that went through the belly of the whale. I feel like I saw every part of it, and I came out the other end, and I am still shocked that this is how bad it is, So a lot of times, like, the bulk of my channel comes from me talking about things from that perspective, from the perspective of, how would I put it, of, I guess, like, because I was gang stalked to be forced to be a drug mule. I wasn't a drug mule myself. So I can't say I've seen every part of it. Let me retract that statement. I can't say I've seen every part of it. I don't know what their oaths are like. I don't know, like, if they're told like they can't be around people in the normal world, or like I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know like that, but I can see it from the standpoint of like having been forcefully recruited. But it does give me a great deal of sympathy for people who are drug mules, because I know that they're binded up. Even if they think it's fun, and even, I know they got a bunch of my customers. I can see a bunch of those girls that got into that world as well. And I can see how it started for them. And I couldn't, I wasn't there to see what started, but I could see the evidence that it started, you know, and how they were surrounded, and then how they were turned into gang stalkers, and just on and on and on. So it's like a crazy world. So, I don't know how many people on here are truly TIs in reality, because I do know that they like, look, I have people that listen to my lives and regurgitate my lives on their channel. Like, they just take the content and they just word for word spit it out. I've watched my own lives. I've watched other people do like dumbed down versions of what I'm talking about. So I think they definitely find people who are truly TIs, and then they take what they're talking about so that they can appear to be genuine. And then I don't know what they do, what their goal is by surrounding people on the internet to further gang stalk them, to further gain access to them, to further abuse them. I don't know. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy world. This is weird, weird, weird stuff. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they tolerate doing it. They have to convince them to like it. They have to convince them that nothing's wrong with it. Because if you actually sit back, it's just really weird. And other than money, other than money and being demonically possessed, you can't really understand what pleasure someone would get from doing this to somebody else. It's very, very weird. Um, and then the last part that I wanted to talk about, as far as like kind of the phases that you go through, the phase that I'm in is the phase where you're sitting down. And I know this is like supposed to be a time of healing and a time of relaxing. And instead, it's like processing difficult emotions. They come up unannounced. They are triggered by all kinds of things. You would think like they're logical ways of triggering, like, a bad memory or something that you're still coping with. It's difficult. It's very difficult. You come a long way, or you think you've come a long way, because, A, B, C, D, E, doesn't trigger you anymore. And then you bump into another one and another one and another one. So there are many layers to healing this thing emotionally. Like, I'll give you an example. If you go through something traumatic, let's say with a family member, well, yeah, I guess that's a good idea. Let's say you went through something traumatic with one person. You may find yourself not trusting one person. If you've been through gang stalking, you find yourself not trusting anything. You don't trust the police, you don't trust the bank to do what they're supposed to, you don't trust institutions, you don't trust just anything, because you see manipulation happen every day. You just see blatant nonsense happen all the time. And it's like, for me, to some degree, I am desensitized to it, even if I notice it. So for example, like, I just had a situation where I was using a service and they're supposed to have an integration. And I know that integration makes the person gang stalking me look bad, because then it really shows that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden, the integration doesn't work. And I contact them and they're like, sorry, we don't know when we can have a fix. And I'm like, all right, well, cancel the service. All of a sudden, integration works. And it's just like, you see kind of crap like that all the time, and you just get like, you get desensitized to it, because you're kind of like, you know what? And then the person wants to contact you again via email and like drag this thing on, and it's just like, do whatever you're gonna do. I don't, it's like, is she trying to, like, what is her, fuck off. I don't know. It's like, it's just, it's like weird nonsense constantly. Constantly. Now, that could very easily be not much at the same time. It could just very easily be like, oh, this customer, like working in a company, this customer wants to cancel, we better fix this thing. And then they get it done, and, you know, the IT people work on it and get it done. It could easily be that. But once you're gang stalked, you process information differently. You deal with people differently. And those are the scars that are left over. Now, healing it is going to be something that I cannot yet talk to anyone about because I haven't done it yet. I haven't mastered this thing yet. I probably come a great deal considering what I've been through, but I really feel like I like talking about things that I have a fair bit of confidence in, even if the confidence is just coming from my intuition. But I haven't done this one yet. I haven't mastered it, but I will tell you, this one, it will throw you for a loop. And you're definitely going to need a lot of alone time. You're going to need a lot of time away from, you think you want to get back out there. Well, I don't. I'm assuming people want to. I've never wanted to be out there in general. And this is why, this was another thing with me coming on here. I'm like, I barely understand people. So like, I don't, but anyway, I'm assuming people want to get back out there. You know, I was never out there to get back to. So for me, this is why I have always found people to be this chaotic. I've always, not this level, but I would say 65-70%. It was a little bit more. Obviously, all of the factors put in together, it's a lot to bear, right? But if we're just talking about people being nosy, passing their place, always wanting to know more than they should, always having this obsessive energy and stuff, like, yeah, I've gone through that like my entire life. Always being weird and like just upset all the time, and like always having an issue and not liking you but wanting to be around you. It's like my whole life it has been this weird. And I was thinking about it today, about how I feel like a lot of gang stalking behaviors I have gone through my entire life, and I think it has just made me more resilient to this situation. So, for example, one of the things that happens with gang stalking is people are made to hate you, and then they're pushed to be around you, to be friends with you in some capacity. So from the word hello, they want to abuse you. This has been my entire life. My entire life, it's been this type of nonsense. So it's very easy to cut people out. I can go from loving you to never thinking about you ever again in a split second. This is not difficult at all. Actually, I don't think about it because it's just life. People can go from, you know, oh my God, you're really a nice person, and then proceed to dicking you over because they've assessed that it's safe. And as soon as they cross that line, they realize that they're in danger. And then they're scrambling for the nice person that they assessed, and they find that there is no nice person behind the line. You know, there's something else behind the line, but it's not what was in front of the line. And then it becomes quite scary because they can't get back over the line to find the nice person. Like, that is lost to them forever. They're stuck with the thing behind the line. And I think it shocks people because of how loving and nurturing and kind I am in front of the line. And I warn people, some people, I warn them first, and I say, listen, as nice as I am, you know, and then they find out the hard way. But This has been an ongoing thing. And you know, I was even thinking about it today. I was thinking about like dreams that I used to have when I was younger, and it was like, if you want to call it dreams, like visions or whatever, where it would be like, I remember one dream that I had, and I was in a cathedral, and it was like, if you could think of like the gargoyle sort of like figurines like that look like demons, were but they were actual demons. They were attacking me, and they were ferocious, they were aggressive, and they were clawing at me, and they wanted to get at me, but they were fearful, like they wouldn't. And I think I was standing in front of someone, and I was protecting them, and I wasn't afraid. And every time this things like this happen, I always realize that I'm never afraid. Like, I realize the danger, but I'm never afraid. So I remember telling people about this dream, and they were looking at me like they were like shocked, and I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't tell people about this stuff that happens then. So, but it's like been my entire life that I have felt to some degree under attack, whether it's been mild or it's been super aggressive or whatever it's been. It's always been some version of this thing has been there. So in a lot of ways, I was already like, a lot of things happened with gang stalking. I was like, oh, okay. So I've seen all of these behaviors. I've encountered them. I've overcome them. I've been prepared for them. Didn't know this was what I was preparing for. Didn't even know I was being prepared. But I've seen these behaviors before. And if I were to describe these behaviors as entities, I've encountered them before. So one has to wonder. And then when I kind of woke up, ascended spiritually, I thought to myself, oh, maybe they're attacking me because of the entity that's with me. And, you know, I call her an entity, but it's God. I said, maybe they're attacking me because of God. And I used to wonder, I'm like, what is it about her that pisses them off so much? Why are they so upset all the time? Like, what is it about her? And what conclusion am I at now with this thing? Because it's evolved. Where am I now with it? I still don't know. I still don't know. I thought about, you know, in the situation that I'm in now, I know spiritually that these people are after some sort of divine contract, and I think they got it. I think they got what they wanted. And let me tell you, this contract makes you susceptible to demonic attack. And it's like, these are the things that were in the fine print that possibly nobody talked about. But this is not what people think it is. You have to stop and wonder, like, they have to think to themselves, if we want this so badly from this person, if we get it, are we gonna be the next target? Are other dangerous entities gonna look at us and attack us in the same obsessive way? Yes. It's like how Kim Kardashian got robbed for that diamond ring. Like, and then people talk about their jewelry, and they have to leave it in the safe at the bank, and like they have to get the armored guards to go and get it out, and blah blah blah. It's like the ring will attract craziness. Like, there are goddesses who had jewelry that they had to put curses on because it was constantly like people were desecrating tombs and temples to get this. So, you know, this is an energy that if you want to carry, you need a lot of protection, and it's not as fun as it appears. It is not what it looks like from the outside at all. And I'm sure the people that have gone through and gotten this contract and did all this stuff are now realizing it is not fun to be me. Let me tell you, it is not fun. People will try to kill you all the time, obsessively. They just hate you. Some of them, if they're carrying an entity, definitely, for sure. The entity is on attack mode all the time. Voices whisper in people's ear at 3 a.m. in the morning about you, and people wake up with you on their mind and they want to get their hands on you so badly. So, this is not fun. It's not fun at all. I guess that's why it's not that I'm not strong. I'm a very strong person, but maybe that's why it 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 it's tough, but you know, I think maybe other people might have a tougher time with it, not might, but are, because if you are not a person who knows how to be alone, or you're used to it, if you're not used to betrayal, if you're not used to being slandered, if you're not used to being ostracized, if you're not used to like so much of the behaviors that happen with gang stalking, if you're not used to it, and then you face all of this all at the same time, it will crush you. Mentally alone, it will crush you. It's craziness. You really got to be built for stuff like this. It's tough. It's very tough. You know, but like I said, people going through this stuff, you got to be strong. You do not have a choice because no help is coming. This is the reality. No help is coming. And it sucks. I came to that conclusion fairly early on, that I was completely on my own besides my spiritual team. It's a tough pill to swallow. It really is. And again, but it's just one of those things that I'm used to. I'm again used to no one coming to help, no one coming to save me, having to be in my masculine energy. Like my dad used to say that. He was like, we had this joke one time where there was a like father like son t-shirt, and I was like, we should get that. And then he was like, you're not my son. And then later on he was like, you know what, we should get that t-shirt, because he's like, you know, you're a little bit masculine. It's not that I choose to be, but it's just that there are so many factors. Like I talked about in another live, the fact that I grew up with boys. So, you know, you have to be in a different energy growing up in a all male environment where they are not attracted to you. Most of them were families, so they were not going to be attracted to me either way. If anything, they were probably disgusted by me. And yeah, so it's like, grew up in a male dominated environment, worked in all male, in again male dominated environments, and then got into business, which again you need to step into a very, it's a tough world. Putting a business together is tough. So it requires, you know, there's no coddling anywhere, there's no comfort coming. Men do not comfort each other. Doesn't matter how bad it is. It's kind of sad actually. Doesn't matter how bad it is. Men interpret a helping hand or comfort as flirting, or like a sign that you're interested in them, because they're not used to that. They don't know how to process that. I don't know what to say. So it's like, I've just always been in environments where it's like sink or swim. And you know, it is what it is. So it's not hard for me to swing, you know, back and forth from my masculine to my feminine side. I am very feminine. I'm a very feminine woman, but like I'm also very masculine as well. So, and I think there are people who, I don't know, I feel like maybe there are people who, it's hard to explain. I see women who think they are, but they're not. Like truly, I don't think they understand what it means to be a man. I don't 100% understand what it means to be a man, but I know how it is to be around them, and I know how they behave, and I know how they, how it can be. So it's like, to give an example, if you get injured around guys, like, people are walking off broken legs, like, you suffer in silence, you handle your shit, and you don't expect anyone to care one way or the other. You deal with it. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. It is what it is. Like, no one's coming to help. So for people who have had have had environments where they've had a lot of support in the past, and they've had people who would come and check in on them and make sure they're okay and whatever. I didn't even really ask for help to begin with. I was just like, well, here we go. This is also on the plate with everything else. Sometimes, maybe because of that, I come off a little bit too, what's the word? A little bit too hard on people. Because to me, I just feel like in this gang stalking thing, you're either going to give up or you're going to keep going. Like, it's one of the two. I don't really see a middle ground. And so for me, it's just like, obviously you don't want to give up, so you got to keep going. So it doesn't make sense to complain about the things that are happening. Like, this is happening and that is happening, and nobody will pick up my call and nobody cares. And, but like, they're not gonna care. You gotta take all that stuff away, just push it all aside, and you gotta focus on what is the objective here. When you're being gang stalked, you can't just live to live every day. They have plans for you. They have notes written on how they're saving the biggest distractions, the biggest hurdles, the biggest irritants. They're saving it. They're throwing little things at you because they're saving these bigger ones for the days they really need it, when they see real progress, and then they're going to hit you with this nonsense. This is how they think. There's always like something in their back pockets. You can't just live to live. You can't just exist every day. There must always be a plan. There must always be a focus. There must always be something that you're looking forward to. And you yourself should also have things in your back pocket that you're going to counter those big things with. So I always talk about going through this process and starting to clear your plate. We could talk about, I have all these resources, all these videos with like resourceful information about like how you're being tracked, and like, using cash and like blah, blah, blah. But let's talk about clearing your plate. Let's talk about things like, when you're walking on the street and you're being crowded out, what do? There comes a point where you can't live like this anymore, and it's not gonna stop. So what are you gonna do? You gotta just walk around. They do this in such a way that it's undetectable to people from the outside. So people who are just sitting there, sitting around or standing around, don't see anything. You're the one that they go out of their way to do things for you to notice. So simple math, you gotta just not notice them. Of course you notice them, but you turn it off. And this is also what you got to do with your emotions. Your emotions are going to get the best of you. You're not a robot, you're a human being. As soon as those difficult emotions click in, you acknowledge it. They are valid. Every single one of these emotions are valid. This is not like where people are making excuses for stuff. This cannot be called an excuse at all. This is extremely valid. If you did not want to go to work because you're being gang stalked, that's worse than having a cold and being under the weather. It's a very valid reason. However, you can't stay in your feelings too long. So 24 hours is too long. One of the keys that you need to getting through this is mind over matter. You need to control everything about your emotions. And you need to do so in such a way where you're walking a tightrope or a fine line, because you don't want to get too cold. You don't want to get too mechanical, but you cannot be too emotional. And I always talk about the middle path. Very perfect balance, because if you fall one way or the other, too heavy on either side, you're going to be, it's not good either way. It's not, you don't want too much of anything. So I talk about myself. I walk a middle ground. I can be extremely kind, or I can be something else when needed. And so I just try to stay in the middle all the time. Now I do. Before I was way too kind, way too nice, way too whatever. And then I'd have to be triggered, pushed too far to get to the other side. Now I walk in the middle. And every time there is something that happens or some sort of interaction, I decide which side I'm going to go on. So I enforce my boundaries, right? But I've had to learn that middle path. I've had to learn that. And so now I can tell people, like, you want to be on a middle path with as many things as possible. You don't want to be too cruel, and you don't want to be too nice. You want to be centered, and you want to have a balanced approach as to which side you're going to lean on. So it's the same thing when it comes to acknowledging your feelings. You don't want to not acknowledge your feelings at all, because your feelings are very powerful to have and to acknowledge. But you can't be too much in your feelings as well, either way. I find it easier for me myself not to complain too much. Anytime I start complaining too much, I think to myself, things can be worse, because I know they can be worse. I don't like to tempt the universe. I don't want to know how my situation can get worse. So I always look at my situation and I say, it's not the greatest right now, but at least I have this. And before I know it, I'm counting blessings. And this is the way that I walk myself back. I walk myself back to a place where I can feel centered, in control of my reality, and grateful, regardless of what's going on, just feeling grateful. You know, it's so terrible, because I was thinking again, when I was comparing being gang stalked to the people in Palestine, and you know how they're at war, and it's so helpless and it's so sad. And the only reason I would venture to make that comparison, because this is awful, it is awful to say or to think that way, but is because gang stalking is so hard. Being gang stalked is so hard that you have to compare it to being at war, because in a sense you are at war. So I do look at that situation and say, well, you know what, at least I'm not sitting where bombs are dropping around me all day. You know, it could be worse. And then I looked at the lady that was a burn victim and I said, well, you know what, at least, you know, something like that didn't happen. That must be awful. And, you know, at least I have, you know, use of my limbs. And, you know, there's always something to be grateful for. There really is. Every time, you know, you're able to go buy a meal for yourself, every time you're able to have, you may not have a great night's rest, but you have a bed to sleep in and you have a warm place to call home, etc. Like, you got to be grateful for those things, because they are trying to take everything from you. They're trying to take those things as well. Those things that you are not grateful for, they're trying to take those things away. So you really have to start putting things into perspective for yourself. I mean, that's one of my processes for not falling too deep in my feelings about how awful this is. There are times where emotionally it is difficult for me, and like, nothing is a good thing. I just need time to sit with myself. It doesn't matter what music I were to listen to. It's just, yeah. And then I need to take some time to center myself and bring myself back. I have had to learn. It is very difficult. And this is where you know that they are energetically manipulating you, even if you do not believe in this sort of thing. When you do not want to get up and make your bed anymore, when you do not want to get up and go to work, or you don't see the point of pushing forward anymore, when you feel like there's no point in doing it because they're going to ruin it anyway, when you're feeling this way, this is this is where they want to get you. And this is why they attack you so much. And it's difficult. It's scary. It is a scary place to be when you're feeling that way. And on my journey, I have gotten through that by being constantly encouraged in my spirituality. So I will credit my spiritual family for getting me through this. And I will credit the way that I have grown up and the experiences that I've had that have made me think I had such a tough experience, and questioning why my life experience was so much different from other people. Like, why it just didn't seem like, because there was a point in my life, like when I was way younger, that I obviously wanted to have like female friendships and stuff, but I was like, why won't this work for me? To get all the way here and realize, okay, this is why. Because if I had a whole bunch of female friends, this would have been worse. This would have been 20 times worse for me. It is the fact that I'm used to being on my own, etc., etc. Like all of the things that I've acclimatized to, these are the things that made it bearable. Not bearable, but it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is every day for me. Like, you can't isolate me if you met me isolated. The issue is trying to get me to have a friend. I refuse to have any friends. I don't want to say I don't like people, because I like people. I like people in small doses. People exhaust me in, women especially. Women are sorry, please. I know y'all gonna say something. I know somebody's gonna say something. Women are exhausting. To me, personal opinion, I find women care about things that I don't care about, and make a big deal of things that do not need to be made a big deal of. Just my personal opinion, just how I feel. And that could just be a direct result of me growing around, again, boys. And I want to use the word easygoing, but it's like you don't make a big deal about things. Like, maybe it's a toxic behavior. Maybe you tend to brush things under the rug and just move on for the sake of it. But like, it's not draining either. At least it's not draining you, energetically. So I just find there's nothing wrong with it. But for me, it's harder to process. I have to be over explaining myself, because my opinions, I don't know, maybe they're going to be unpolished and like unpopular, I'm just speaking my truth. What else would I want to talk about as far as enduring and surviving this? I wanted to say this. If you saw how it looks like in public when you are being gang stalked, you would be upset at yourself for being scared of this thing. No one is detecting it, because what they're doing is psychological. You have to step outside of the circle. How did I get over it? Exactly like I'm telling you. You just have to step outside of it. They go out of their way to do this stuff, but when you look at them, it's like, these are random people. They're not they're trained enough to like how to get you to like to bother you in a covert way. But it's not like they're trained on like, they're not CIA agents. They're not trained in combat. They don't have weapons on them. And I mean, I'm sure that, so say for example, if you're in the military and you're being gang stalked by the military, I'm sure those soldiers gang stalking you are gonna look scary to you because you're in the military, right? But excuse me, if you're I don't know, like some random old lady. I'm sure they're not saving like the guys that look like they're carrying knives for the old ladies. Like, you know, they're figuring like she's an old lady, she's gonna scare easily. But if you're a guy, they're probably gonna, you know, bring guys that look scarier. People that look upset all the time, people that look like the police, people that look like, you know, whatever. But either way, they're not there to kill you. People that want to kill you, kill you. Done. People that want to kill you, they kill you. People that want to kidnap you, kidnap you. People don't spend money paying people to follow you around when they could just get the job done clean. These are scare tactics. That's it. So you have to train your mind day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute on how to walk through a crowd where people are intimidating you or trying to. I go to listen, and I'm a different person again. So I'll give an example. Now, I don't even know if I should be saying this or not, but I will say it because hopefully it can help somebody. I'll be in a crowd and I'll be at the grocery store, and they're looking through, they're walking through the aisles and they're looking for me, right? And then they find me. And you know, they have that laugh like, ha ha ha, like we found her. And hold on. And they'll have this laugh like, ha ha ha, I found her. And they'll push their cart into the aisle. And I mean, like, I don't do this all the time and I don't recommend this behavior, but I'm just going to tell you how I am, right? As soon as I notice that little smirk and you found me, I don't mind. Come stand next to me, be weird, it's fine. As soon as you push your cart and you walk, it's my turn. I'm gonna follow you around the whole supermarket. I'm gonna be so weird. Like, if you're reaching for the cheese, I'm gonna pick up the cheese right beside you and brush my hands at yours, but I'll never look at you. And then I'll let you walk somewhere else, and then I'll just go and I'll look at something right beside you. And then you'll do something else, and I'll be right there. And I'll be with you the entire time. And I remember what the first time I did it, the girls used to scramble and they used to like, and they used to run. And I'm like, fuck are you running about? You were trained. Do you see how that psychotic behavior works on everybody? It's the same thing. Someone was paid to gang stalk me and they're running out of the supermarket and they're looking at the other people that like making eye contact with other people like, what's wrong with her? She's crazy. I'm crazy. We're all crazy then. What? And so they had difficulty with me at some point because it was like I was freaking the people out. Sorry. The hell? It's like weird behavior. So it's like, then, you know, they'd start sending all these guys. So it's like all these men, these grown men. So the grown man comes and he's standing next to me and he's doing something. And it's like, oh, you want my attention? So he goes in another aisle and or another side and he's just standing there and he's smirking, you know, that smirk that they give. He's smirking, he's looking at the other ones. And I come up close to him and I stretch across him. I mean, I'm in his personal bubble. We're hip to hip. And I stretch across him and I snatch up the thing he was about to pick up before him. And I can feel his heartbeat starts racing. And he's looking up like, is she supposed to be doing this? And I look at it and I smelled the fruit and I looked at him. And he did not want to make eye contact with me at all. Like, it was so weird. It was like you're supposed to make eye contact in a normal situation like that because you're like, what the hell? He refused eye contact. And I looked over at him, I smelled it, and I stretched across and I put it back down. And I said hi, and he didn't know what to do. He's like, he like ran out the store. And I'm just like, listen, you shouldn't be following people around if you cannot deal with the same behavior that you're doing because it's weird and it's stupid. But this is why I come on here and I tell people, like, this is stupid. You gotta master every stupid thing that they do to you. Every stupid thing. You gotta master the gang stalking. Then you gotta master being hacked. Because who gives a shit? Who cares that they're watching you all day? I work and they're watching me all day. all day. I've been going through it for the I'm not even going through it. It's just happening. Do you know how long you've been being watched before they made you know that they were watching you? Go back to that. That's how I see it. Just go back to that. When you don't know, it's the same thing. Don't save porn on your phone. Done. Don't like, what are you gonna do? You gotta live. You gotta get over everything they do, and you gotta get over it one behavior at a time. Now, this gang stalking thing, they still kind of do it here and there. Sometimes I pay attention to it, sometimes I don't. So here's the thing. There are times where, so I was at the phase in the beginning where it was like I wanted to dodge them for certain things, right? And so there were times where it was like, okay, I'm not going to go back to this place because I don't want to have to deal with this nonsense today, right? But there are days where I'm like, I don't care. I want the thing from there. So I'm going to deal with this nonsense today. So it's like, I'm going to go there. So anyway, my situation's a little different because people think I'm a witch, and maybe I don't know. I don't know the definition of a witch. I don't. I think witches do spell work, but I don't know. But in my city, they think I'm a witch. All right. Even before I came on this camera, they were telling people I was a witch because they were sending death magic and I wasn't dying. Okay. So it is what it is. Anyway, in my situation now, what they do is if they think I'm going to leave the house, they send people to every possible place I could go. Anywhere I have ever gone, they send people to scout that place. And so the people are walking around up and down and they're looking for me. And when they catch me, they're like, oh, we spotted her. So you can see now they all start flocking, etc. But so it's not enough that they go to, let's say, the supermarket I go to. They now go to, they've watched what I buy in my groceries. I kid you not, when I go grocery shopping and there's a gang stalker gets in each line, and they'll be at the line and they'll be like watching what I buy in my groceries. So they go to those aisles. I'm not joking, the lengths that they go to. So they'll go to certain fruits or vegetables or things that I buy. And now what it looks like is nobody wants to be the person that I come up to their aisle. So if they're waiting a particular place, they're waiting. I'm not joking. Like, I'm not saying that people are just there. They're just guys waiting at different spots where they figure that I will be. And so when I go to get the thing, it's like when they see me coming, they're like, and they turn their back and they start grumbling and they're like, it's like, this has been for months though. It's like you can see them cursing under their breath. They're annoyed. They're pissed off. If they're sitting in the car at a location where they figure I'll be, when they see me come, they start cursing. They're so annoyed. They're pissed off. And in the beginning, I used to think like, how comes they're mad when they see me, or how comes they get so nervous? Who knows? And who cares? You know, it is what it is. Whatever they did, they shouldn't have done it. But I will say this. These are the lengths that they're going to go through, even if they don't want to. Even if they don't want to. So, do you really want to be afraid of people who are, if you do this thing right, are supposed to be afraid of you? If you do this thing correctly, are supposed to be afraid of you? That's just really what it boils down to. And this was repeated to me by my spirit team very early on in this process. Do not fear people who should be fearing you. And that's the thing about them. They repeat things whether or not I want to hear them, I need to hear them, I'm in a good mood. They just repeat it, 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 over and over and over and over again. Like children, like how you have to repeat things to children, like that. Constant repetition of things that sometimes, the majority of the times I hear it, I don't even need to hear it. I feel great. But it's that time that I don't feel great, that I remember it because it's been repeated so many times. And so I get into the habit of doing that for myself and training myself in the same way. If you have a very strong relationship spiritually with spirit guides and a spirit team, you will be shocked at how this situation will turn out. Listen, in my case, okay, I'm dealing with the cartel, and Latino people tend to be more spiritual than they let on, okay? Maybe not religious, but spiritual. A lot of cultures are like that. They believe in spiritual things. So, them knowing that I'm very spiritual means something to them. It may not mean that to the other cultures that are gang stalking, but the Latinos, it means something to them. And so, let me tell you, if they did not want me alive, if they felt it was safe, I wouldn't be alive right now. That's the reality. That's the truth. I think everybody in my personal situation knows that they're not gonna live a happy life if they take certain steps. I think it's become obvious in my situation. But I don't think this just has to be my situation. I think this is everybody's situation. The difference is I make the effort to connect. I take it seriously, and I am teachable. Now, it doesn't mean I'm taking advice and drinking from every cup, but it means that I am considering everything. Some pieces of advice are not even worth consideration. Like one time I heard a reader say, why are you listening to your ancestors as you living this life? Immediately, goodbye. Shut down, bye. That's like, stuff like that is obvious, right? But if somebody says something like, put salt under your bed for a night's sleep, I'm not dismissing that, especially if I'm having issues sleeping. I'm gonna at least try it. If I try it and it's a placebo effect, meaning it's not actually the salt, but it's just the idea of having the salt that makes me sleep better, it still works for me. It still works for me, even if it's just the idea of it. Meaning that maybe if there's a possibility, and this is absolutely not the case, but if it were a possibility that it's only the idea of a God that makes me feel safe and not the reality of a God, then didn't it have the same effect? It's the same thing. It's the same outcome. So, why are people turning down information or advice? Yes, I know how it sounds for someone to say that you're having this sort of reaction and sitting in a tub of salt water, is going to make you feel better. I can understand how you'd be like, how? We don't really care how. We need solutions. That's like really all it boils down to. You need solutions. Someone has a solution. You got to try it. And you got to take it seriously. And if you're going to take advice, you want to take advice from someone who says they've been there and they've done it. Now, there's a lot of people who say they've been there and they've done it and they haven't. And you can tell. You got to strengthen everything. There was a point in time. This thing has been a boot camp. It's I've come so far to tell you that gang stalking is boot camp. As long as you can survive it, it's a boot camp. It's training. That's it. It's training. You're not gonna die. You're not, it's just like, it's a roller coaster ride. Like, it's scary when you get to the top. It's scary when it flips over. It's scary. You gotta have trust that the seatbelt is gonna work, and you know the safety inspectors really inspected this thing, and like everything's working and blah blah blah. Like, but you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna get through it. You gotta strengthen up a lot of things. You gotta take control of a lot of things. You gotta figure a lot of things out, and then you walk through it. There was this phase where I couldn't trust anything so badly that I was only dependent on my instincts for everything. And when you're just developing your instincts, like, I mean, I would say that I have strong instincts for the average person, and I listen to it, but I mean, they were really after me. Not that they're ever not really after me, but they were hungry to get this thing wrapped up. And I was never sure going into anything until I got in it what it was exactly. And there were a lot of times where it was like just by this much. Um, it was simple things like the paper was in front of me. I could have signed it, but I said, okay, let me sleep on it. Let me make a decision and I'll get back to you. And I sleep on it, and my spirit team is like rocking me back and forth, like, absolutely not, you're not signing it. And I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I can't sign this paper. And then their reaction shows me like, oh, I would have gotten that happened to me with a lease. They would have destroyed me had I signed that lease. They would have taken me to court. They would have done all of this stuff to me. Like, it would have been bad. It would have been all around just very, very bad had I signed that lease. But that was one of the many, many traps that they tried to put me in. So I'm telling you, like, it has just been non-stop. But after I really learned to trust my intuition, trust my inner guidance, trust my voice, my inner voice, I got to the point where I was like, I trust myself. I trust myself to go out into the world and to just know who's who, what's what, what's safe, what's not. And I trust my spirit team to also have my back as well. You know, there was a point where I just decided I'm cutting off the entire city. I don't care. And not just the city, almost like the whole world. You can't trust. You cut off the city, they're like, oh, what city that you want to trust people in then? You cut off that city. Like, you just, like, imagine having to cut off not just friends, family, like the entire city. Like, you just have to say to yourself, like, nothing is safe in the city anymore. That's how desperate these people are. So it's like, it's just steps. And then, you know, you kind of realize like, well, I did a long time ago. I sat there and I was like, I'm looking at my life, and everything that I've ever gone through has prepared me for everything that I'm going to go through. So what in the heck is gang stalking preparing me for if I'm not meant to die from this? That is actually what really scares me. I'm not scared of the gang stalking thing. To me, in my mind, that's like done. And I've been saying it for months, and it's not that they don't stop doing it. It's just like, if I'm walking away from you, what do you want to do? If I am not afraid, you want me to manufacture fear? You want me to pretend that I'm afraid? You like, what are you gonna do? So it just makes you realize that, I hate to say it, but I just feel like it gets worse. So there is no point if I've already deduced that it's going to be worse than what it is today. There is no point in me like wasting any more energy on this. If anything, I feel like I should be resting for whatever's coming, because I don't know when it's coming. It has been one thing after the other thing, after the other thing, after the other thing. It's been one stage after the other stage, after the other stage. It's been one episode after the other episode. But I have to say, once you get to the point that you are not afraid of it and you see people for who they are, they're human. Like, I mean, they're barely human beings, but technically, if we're being technical, they're human beings, they're people. It's not like it's actual like monsters that are like walking around. It's not like you feel like you're in a zombie apocalypse. You feel like you're walking in like the undead, you know, and everybody's infected. But I mean, it is what it is. You kind of adapt to that world. Like, for me, it's going on 3 years. 2 years of being actively gang stalked and 3 years in a mental ward. So after 3 years, like, you're gonna get acclimatized to things. It's like you don't even startle anymore when you see things. It's like, it is what it is, you know. It is what it is, and that's all it boils down to. Is it is what it is. Is there anything that I want to add? Is there anything that I want to add? I'm gonna have to leave this other side to another day. This is what I want to say. This is psychological. This is more psychological than anything else. It's more spiritual than it is physical. It's meant to exhaust you, it's meant to drain your energy. The most important part of it is to have a spiritual relationship. You got to strengthen that relationship. You have to find a spiritual relationship with God, which I talk about that on my channel as well. You got to find a relationship with God, because I promise you, it was me and God through this thing. The toughest part of it, the scariest parts of it, it was me and God. I think it's a tough thing to get through. I think my particular situation was very tough because, you know, they knew it would be me alone going through this. They knew that the kind of people that we're dealing with, the kind of energies that they play with are very, very dark, and very, very aggressive. And so, you know, I had to trust God for a lot of it. And I had to build a relationship on the ground running. I had to build spiritual, like, you know, rituals, and find ways to heal myself, and like all of it was on the ground running, while running. So wasn't easy. And I could have, you know what, I could have come on Google and found like, or YouTube, and found like a bunch of this stuff, but too much was going on. And it was probably better that I didn't, because then they would have known what I was doing at a time where they were well funded, they were strong, there was a lot of people helping them. You know, a lot of their energy, their resources, whatever, has drained just by me hanging out, like hanging in there. A lot of their everything has drained. It's dwindled down. I was listening to a reading, and the reader was like, if it started with 100 people, there's like 5. Or she said either 5 or 3. And that's literally what it feels like. Cause before, mad, mad, mad. People who are gang stalked as drug mules, it is crazy. It's crazy. I can't say whether it's crazier than anyone else, but it is insane. So I want to say it took me to get really annoyed with this situation. I want to say like maybe into the 3rd month, I was like pissed off and angry and no longer afraid. And then to get a good handle on it, I want to say maybe like 6 months. And then to start seeing results, a year. A year. When I say start seeing results, I mean like a dramatic drop in the numbers of people following me around, and the kind of spiritual work they could do on me and all that. A year. I'm just not a person that has ever in my life been convinced of doing something that I don't want to do. Like, I can't think of a situation where I think God can convince me to do something I don't want to do. And I'll tell God, like, I'm doing it for you, but I don't want to do it. And I'll do it anyway. But like, no one's ever convinced me of doing anything. And the whole time I thought it was crazy. I was like, where are they going with this? The police can't convince me. No one can convince me. I want to do it. That's it. So I never considered doing it. And at one point, I think going up until a year into it, I was like, if this is going to be the rest of my life, then so be it. I just don't see the drug mule thing for myself. I don't see it. And besides, I'm not going to take the oath, because it seems like once you take the oath, you're like, it's a different world. It's like they own you. It's like you're in like some type of a military, where if they're just gang stalking me and I'm not even in, and this is how they're behaving, God forbid how they behave when you're in. So it's like, no, I'm not gonna go for that. And I always knew it was a dirty offer, and I always knew it was a weird deal, and I was just always never interested. I just did not care. So for me, I guess you can say I am a stubborn person. I guess it's true. I've heard that my entire life. My grandmother used to call me hard-headed. They didn't even call me my name. They called me hard-headed my entire life. And I think people that know me and know how I am, they don't bother arguing with me when I say no. Even if I say it nicely, once I say no, they just like, people usually drop it with me. So I think I've broken the chief handler. I think he's a little bit crazy now. Stubborn people can do that too. I have a daughter who's stubborn, and I also don't. I don't argue with her. I leave her alone now. It's for my mental health, not because of, it's for me. Because stubborn people will make you crazy. I'm telling you. You will lose your mind trying to control someone that's not willing to budge. They just don't care. So I think maybe somebody at some point is going to figure this out. I don't know if they're going to give up, if they're not going to give up. I'm not sure. But I've adapted myself to the situation if the situation does not want to change. So it is what it is. And I like some of the places I go to, so I still go there. They're just going to drive up. They're going to see me. We're going to look at each other. And then I'm going to go about my way. I'm going to go home. That's it. And they're going to drive super close to me in the back of me on the highway. And then they're going to, I don't know, what else do they do? What can they do? And they get to do it every 2 weeks if I leave the house or whatever. So that's my situation. So my situation is a situation I do not feel fear in my situation of anything, not even of the cartel, to be quite honest with you. I do not feel fear of anything. Because do you know why I don't feel fear of them? It's not that they're not dangerous. It's just that, what are they gonna do if they hurt me? What are they gonna do? They're gonna continue making money and live happily. I just don't think it's possible for them to enjoy a good what they're doing right now is bad enough. And I know that there are signs already that they should stop. They already have that. They already have that. That is why I walk around like that, because I know when I say it, because I behave this way, I think that there are people who don't grasp or don't believe. They either don't believe me that this is happening, or they don't grasp the seriousness of it. I have to remind people sometimes, like, hey, this is a gang. Like, these are violent people. But they know who I call God. If I were praying to Jesus, they would take that as a joke for sure. But they know who I'm talking about. And so even though they might pretend like they don't care, they do. They respect it to some degree, and they can see it, in their lives, and, they can see it. They can see it. And, when God has me say things to, to them, I say it, because they should be able to understand what I'm saying. So it's not that the threat is not real. The threat is real, but it's like, when you're talking to people who, how do I put it? If you talk to, like, let's say like a regular North American person, you talk to them about black magic, they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, haha, and roll their eyes, right? And then when they start having things happen in their life, they're gonna just think it's just bad luck or regular life or whatever. But if you talk to, let's say, a Nigerian, a West Indian, somebody African, somebody from Mexico, somebody, Latino, whatever, you start talking to them about black magic, they take it seriously. They have stories where they were growing up, they know people, blah, 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 blah. So if they see after something bad happens to them, they automatically start thinking it's you. And if the bad things won't stop and their life falls apart, they take it seriously. It's like that when it comes to, who I call God, and these people, they understand English. Well, They don't understand English, but they understand her. And I think, I don't know. It's not my thing to think or to know. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know this much. And I thought it important to mention this for anybody watching me. First of all, if you are not being gang stalked by this gang, just count yourself lucky. If it was your job, or like, I don't know, the supermarket that you work at, the big supermarket chain or whatever, count yourself lucky. At least they're not violent. That's number one. If it weren't for who I worship, and I worship openly for a reason, well, because I feel like it's my right, to be honest with you. And I don't care what anybody has to say about it. That's what it is. I think it's my right. I don't really care, how people take it one way or the other. And I know that it's maybe they frown upon it, but who the hell are they to frown upon anything? They gang stalk people. Where is their moral ground? Where is their moral standing to tell me what to do? And look at what they do. So I don't care. But and that's the thing. That really was the attitude. I just didn't care, because people were, I feel like, were lying on me in my city anyway, and saying that I was doing things that I wasn't, that I don't even know how to do, that I'm learning about now, and things that I still think are disgusting. But anyway, I forget where I was going with this. What was I saying? Why was I saying this? Oh yes, with this gang. Listen, the way that I see it is this, and I don't know if this is good or bad. If I have to live in a world that, my eyes are open to the real world, the way the world is, and it ends with violence on my life, to me, it's still better than being a drug mule. That's how I see it. Now, I know that there are people out there that are drug mules, unfortunately. I think 80-90% of them were tricked and forced, and or forced. I don't know how many. Maybe the people who went involuntary, okay, maybe that's too high. Maybe there, I just saw a lot of people tricked and forced. A lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. I didn't, I don't think they come to you with a pamphlet and they say, hey, this is what you, maybe they do. And some people don't mind trying it, but they definitely don't know. They don't know that they're going to be stuck. They don't know that they're going to be trapped. That is the point that I'm trying to make. So for me, if I had the good sense to know what was going to happen, and I do, then if it ends in violence, then at least I'm not stuck in whatever the hell they have people stuck in, because this is crazy. So that doesn't work for me. Now, maybe that explanation doesn't work for everybody, but that and a very strong faith, this is not like how some religious people believe in their religion, where it's convenient, or they call on God when they need something. My relationship with God is not based on, like, I need this, can you do this for me? It's, I see myself of service to God. I see it the opposite way. I don't see it as God is there like a slot machine. I put in a quarter and I get something out. I see it as, well, what do you need from me? And I was asking from the very beginning, when they were there with me, I was like, let me know what I can do for you. Let me know how I can be of service. Little did I know that was the whole point. But, I'm a very grateful person. I don't even have to try to be. I am very appreciative. So I was always of the thought, like, well, let me know. And then it was like, well, you need to talk to these people. It's like, they don't really tell you that you need to talk to people. You just end up saying things and you're like, oh my God, I know I did not just say that, because it wasn't even in the plan. So that's how I see it. And I just feel like whatever way God wants it to go is the way it is going to go. We tend to think that we're in more control of our lives than we are. We're not as in control as we think. Things are happening outside of your control. Things are happening to you, and they're happening for you, and they're moving you along. And it's in your best interest. And that was one of the things that I was always reminded of, is you're going to see this is going to turn out well. This is going to turn out in your best interest. And I used to roll my eyes. I was very resentful. I was like, how on earth is this in my best interest? Like, what is going on here? But, you know, it is what it is. It has come full circle. Every time I walk outside and people are not following me around anymore, I'm like, you did it. You kept your promise. You kept your word. I owe you an apology. I didn't think it was going to happen. There was another story that I wanted to tell. I think I'm going to tell it now. It's late. Whoever's hanging in here with me, because it's super late, but I'm going to make this fast. I was thinking to tell this story earlier. When I was younger, I was 18. I went through a really hard time with people in my life. It sucked actually a lot. I'm putting it lightly. I had basically adult people in my life who should have been caring for me, taking advantage of the fact that I was young, taking advantage of the fact that I didn't have a lot of help and support. And I was pretty much going through, not gang stalking, but bullying by adult women. And so in that situation, so much was happening and it was getting worse all the time. And it was kind of like gang stalking. It lasted a couple of years as well. It really threatened my foundation. It really threatened, just like gang stalking, it threatened a lot of things in my life. And again, there was spell work. Only at the time, I knew that there was spell work. I didn't, it's like I'm a kid. It's not like I believe in that stuff so much, but I could see that things are happening that are weird. I could see that things are happening that are not normal. And anyway, this woman was using a lot of spell work on me as a kid. And I remember things were happening that were so bad. Things were dwindling in my life. And I remember I stopped believing in God and I became atheist and I was very angry. And I don't know, at first I was angry at God and then I said there's no God, because there's no way that there can be a God and these kind of things can happen. Like, why would this happen to me? I'm innocent, I'm such a good person, etc., etc. And I feel like, and maybe I had to go through the situation like that. I think everything happens for a reason, but I feel like where I am now, had I believed in God, had I prayed, because I didn't pray not once. I didn't ask for any help. I just expected God to swing in and make it right. And I feel like had I prayed, had I known God, had I even tried, I feel like things would have turned out a million times better for me. I feel like it wouldn't have been that bad. But because I didn't believe, it was almost like I feel like God was helpless, because it's like they're watching me go through something and I'm not asking for any help. That situation is why this situation is different. I was thankful and grateful the entire time through. I mean, I was praying till I was prayed out. I was exhausted from praying. I had prayed too much. It was like, oh my God. I was praying all the time, all day, all the time. Like, I mean, every time I went to work, I had to pray or else I wasn't going to make any money. That's how much spell work they were doing in my store. They were dropping off negative energy in my store every single day. I had to pray for, like, if I'm there for 10 hours, I had to pray the entire 10 hours to make money. And every time I would pray, and then they got hip to it. So every time I would pray while someone's at the cash, the person would just not buy. It was like, it was getting crazy. It was getting so nuts. So I say all that to say, had I not had God with me and prayer with me, there is nothing that you can do to escape this. Even with God, it's difficult. Even with God. So it just goes to show you how tough this can be. And this is why my channel does not, when I first came on here to tell my story, I considered for a bit to not be as spiritual. I felt like it was more of a personal belief, and then, but it's hard to tell the story without telling the spiritual side. And then I also realized that other people that are being gang stalked also have this spiritual thing that's happening with them as well. They also have this energetic thing, and They call it energy weapons and all of that. I know it's spell work. I know it's spell work because people have done spell work on me before. I recognize spell work. I know what spell works, what it looks like. So for me, I just feel like I'm giving the information. I hope people take the information, but I also know that what I'm saying is correct. And I think that's one of the difficult parts with just giving people advice is it's so tough giving people real life advice and then they don't take it, because it's like I know it'll be easy. It would have been easier if there was the consequences wouldn't be so bad. So if I'm telling someone, I like the blue versus the red, who cares? But if it's like I'm saying, listen, you really got to pray, and I know that's the difference between you falling sick. That's the difference between a deal working for you. That's the difference between making it out of this thing and not making out of it at all, getting trapped in it. You have to get a soul contract back. That's not easy. Like, that takes a while. These are not easy things to happen. These are not easy things to occur. You know what I'm saying? Like, even in my situation, it's like I have to pray for other people too that are innocent but hard-headed. Because it's like, I have friends that I've told, like, don't take this lightly. Like, this is, like, still. And right now, it's like, I can tell they got wrapped up in it. I can see it. It's like, I see every, so it's like, I still cast a prayer out there for them. And I'm like, you know what? If they're going to get tied in, at least don't make it painful, whatever the case is, who knows, right? But like, hopefully people take the advice, and hopefully people just consider. I know changing someone's beliefs it's not going to be easy. And as far as who I call God, I think she looks better than a lot of things in the spiritual world. I will tell you that. At least she has a human form, which is a skeleton, which is what we have under our skin. Because there's a lot of people out there in the spirit world that do not look human at all. They look like monsters. If you saw people's spiritual self, they look like monsters. So, and these are people that smile in your face, that look like this. You don't necessarily look like this out there. Not everybody, some people, not everybody. So I'm just saying all of that to say this is not a dark energy. This is a very loving, nurturing, kind, protective energy. And I feel like I prefer the image of her in a skeleton than say in the Madonna, because then people argue about the color of the skin. They start arguing about things that are meaningless instead of like focusing on the energy itself. So she might as well, be just a skeleton, and hopefully it's a human form, but then, then that gets thrown into something else. So it's like, just hopefully people see, my heart, and they see where I'm coming from, that I am not a dark demonic person, that I want to help people. And then they figure that if I'm trying to help people, then, then I must, who I, call God must, not be dark and demonic either. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna save. I had like a whole sheet of stuff I actually wanted to talk about, and I went off course. But that is probably God's intention anyway. So thank you for hanging in there, whoever hung in there, and have a good night.